Hi everyone, Jessica here from Paper Ink Stamp and welcome back to my channel. So today's video, this is an extra video this week. I wanted to create another video using this pretty layering petals. So this has come from issue 78 of Die Cutting Essentials, and the video that I posted yesterday was sort of our first look at the magazine. But when I was watching the video back after I had uploaded it to YouTube, I realised at the end when I was talking about having all the petals and things, I was saying that you could make full butterflies or half butterflies when actually in fact I meant flowers. But then when I went back and started looking at this, I did start to think actually you could probably make some really great butterflies with this set, and then I just thought I really want to have a go at doing that. So that is what we're going to do in today's video. The other thing, I'm really upset because I have actually lost my top petal. So these again were the dies that I used for yesterday's video, but yeah, I've misplaced the top detail die for this one. I'm super upset about it because I do genuinely really love this die set, but for today's card and for creating our butterfly we're going to be using these ones down here, and hopefully I can find my missing die. But let's get into creating our card. So the two dies that I'm going to be using to create my butterfly wings is just the two detailed dies. So included in this piece we've got these two extra dies here, so I'm not going to be using those as the bases. I'm literally just going to have two layers. So I've got the two detailed pieces. They're going to sit on each other just like when I showed you the other dies, but I'm going to be cutting 4 of these, and then they're going to kind of sit just like this and hopefully look like a butterfly's wings. So for our base I'm going to cut that from some gold mirror card, and then the top bit I'm going to cut from some white cardstock. So I also said in my previous video that I think these would look really beautiful layered up with all of the layers just in white cardstock, but I wanted to add again just a little bit of shine in there because I think it's just going to lift it a little bit. So as I said, I'm going to die cut my pieces, and what I'm going to do is die cut this 4 times. I'm going to hold this down with some washi tape, and I'll be back then once I have die cut all of my pieces. So here we've got our 4 sets of these dies. So if we just pop this top white piece over, you can be able to see underneath this, and that gold mirror card is just really kind of subtle back there, but it means then we're going to be able to see kind of the background that we're going to create sort of behind this butterfly. So I'm happy with how these have turned out, but what I kind of want to do is add something to these white pieces. I think they do just look a tiny bit plain, so I want to make them just a touch more interesting. So I'm going to add some embossing powder. It's going to be just a clear embossing powder with a little bit of glitter in it. So I've got some of this Paper Mania holographic embossing powder. I've got my Simon Says Stamp clear embossing pad, and I just got a piece of scrap. Well, this is actually an envelope. That's going to then catch all of our embossing powder in. But what I'm actually going to do just to begin with is I'm just going to kind of scrape my ink pad. So these ink pads are incredibly juicy. So I'm just going to tap that over. I'm just going to have a quick look just in the light just to make sure that I've got it all covered. Then I'm going to pour my holographic embossing powder just all over. Just grab a pair of tweezers. Just so we can kind of knock off any excess embossing powder. So you want to be super careful when you do this, just because otherwise you might get glitter everywhere. And I'm just going to then heat set this while it is on my reverse tweezers. So I've done all 4 of my petals here, so hopefully you're going to be able to kind of see the kind of glitter, the shimmer on here. Let's just focus it. So if I just hopefully move it back and forth, I'm hoping that you're able to pick that up on camera, but it's really subtle. If you've got any kind of white glitter paper, that would kind of work just as well. But the couple things I would suggest if you are going to be using some sort of holographic glittery embossing powder of some kind, make sure that your heat gun is heated up as much as possible, because otherwise it will just kind of blow that glitter off and you won't have a lot left. But just while I'm still zoomed in, if I bring in our other petals of that gold mirror, hopefully you can kind of see a little bit of that shine underneath. So again, you can sort of see my fingers underneath that, but hopefully you can see all of that really lovely glittery shine on there. Okay, so let's attach our wings together now. So I'm going to use my trusty dotty tape pen, add some adhesive to the back of our white embossed piece. We're going to line that up at the bottom and just press that together. So super easy, and they just line up so wonderfully. Okay, so there we have our 4 wings. So what we're going to do is kind of have them sort of overlapping, just sort of something like that. So you can see how lovely that looks. So just as that kind of a butterfly shape. Well, I'm just going to pop those to one side, and what we're going to do now is just work on our background. So I've got another piece of white cardstock, and I've just got this Sizzix embossing folder. If I move that just so you can see the design. So we're going to have this embossed panel. So it's going to be quite plain in a sense that we're not going to have tons of colour on here, but I'm hoping that this is going to come out really, really elegant. So I'm going to run this through my die cutting machine. So here is our background. And the great thing with doing this just on white cardstock is I can choose then which side I want to use. So I think I'm going to use the raised side. So I'm just going to trim this down. So there we have our background piece. And then we can have this really beautiful butterfly just sort of shimmering away on this. So that is going to be our background. But again, so I want to just add a little bit of something to this. So to my background, I'm going to add a little bit of Cosmic Shimmer, and this is the one, this is called Enchanted Gold. So it's got a little bit of gold in here. So we're just going to add some really simple splatter. So let's just take a paintbrush, let's add a little bit of water to our mat. So I've got one of these empty sort of plastic trays for paper that I'm just going to use as kind of a splat box. Let's just add a little bit more water so we can get that splattered motion. And we're just going to add that all over our background. So if you're not getting much from this just by tapping it, the other thing you can do is just grab an acrylic block and you can simply flick this just off the edge. So there is our splattered background. So again, maybe I can just catch it in the light there. So it's really subtle, but it's just going to add some more of that gold into our background. So far we have got our background with our really beautiful butterfly. So let's say it's just going to be like that. But I really want to add some more elements onto here. So I've picked out my scalloped and straight edged nesting dies from Hunky Dory. So I thought that I would add just a vellum circle to go behind our butterfly. So it doesn't need to be too big, and I definitely want to use a scalloped edge. So let's grab this bigger one, and this can just come off the side of this as well. So I'm going to die cut this side from some vellum. Okay, so we've got our circle vellum here, and I'm also going to add a little bit of this black and white twine because I want to add some black in as part of our sentiment as well. So let's just kind of build this together just a little bit so we can kind of see how this is going to come together and how it's going to work. So I'm going to grab the twine, and what I wanted to do was just to wrap it around a few times. Let's just say roughly like that. Then we're going to add our butterfly just sort of on top, just like that. So we've got loads of sort of texture and going to have sort of different layers and things in here. And then for my sentiment, I have got this Painted Hugs by Simon Says Stamp. So I'm going to be die cutting this, and I'm thinking that that could look quite nice. Maybe just being right over our butterfly. And then I've got this Altenew sentiment strips too, and so we've got hugs in here, so there's a few sentiments we can do. So we've got "You are so loved," "I appreciate your kindness." It's got a lot of elements here, but I think it's just going to come together really, really nicely. So let's just sort of take this apart and let's sort of start adding our pieces together so we can really get an idea of how this is going to turn out. So I want to have my scalloped circle kind of coming off the page a little bit, but what I really need to do is kind of pop my butterfly wings together, and just like I showed you in a previous video where we used these these layering petals, I'm just going to grab some washi tape. So I've just popped that in half, and what I'm hoping I'm going to be able to do is just add a touch of tape to the underside of this, hopefully nowhere where you can see it, but it's just going to kind of keep this together. So there we have our butterfly, and it just makes it easier if I just carefully turn these over, makes it easier just adding that washi tape to the back of it, just so you can kind of keep them together. So I've just added a little bit of adhesive to the back of my vellum, and then I'm just gonna line this up kind of where I want it to be with the edge of our embossed. And you can't really sort of see the adhesive on here, but also it's going to be covered with our butterfly, so it should be okay. Then what I'm going to do is take, so let's just put a little piece of adhesive there. I am just going to attach my cord just around sort of one section of it. I'm going to make sure that this is nice and lined up and sort of slightly overlapped. So I'm going to take another piece of washi tape just to hold that in place. So now we have our twine on here as well. So let's just hold it down there as well. So we could then just sort of fan this out a little bit, just like so. So let's add in our first butterfly wings. One. So we've got those butterfly wings there. Let's add our adhesive to our second set. Let's take our second ones, and we're going to kind of line these up as best we can. Okay, so there is our panel. So far we've got lots of different kinds of layers in there. So as I said, I'm going to add our hugs sentiments onto the butterfly, and then we've also got our sentiment. So let's stamp our sentiment first of all. So I'm going to add this onto an acrylic block. I am going to stamp this in my Simon Says Stamp Clear embossing ink. But first I am going to use my anti-static powder bag just to stop the embossing powder sticking anywhere we don't want it to. So let's ink up our stamp. And then we can pour on our embossing powder. So this is the Fine Detail White Embossing Powder by Simon Says Stamp. So you can add that just to flick off any kind of excess there. And then we can heat set this with our heat tool. Okay, so here we have our sentiment strip. So I'm just gonna really simply cut this down. So I've decided that actually I just want to use this sentiment strip rather than including that hugs, because I just think that fits there just so beautifully. So I'm just literally going to use this, but what I'm going to do just first of all before I add this on is I'm going to create a card base. So I've got a piece of grey cardstock here. So this is some single-sided cardstock. So I've trimmed this down, so this is 11 tall by 4 1/4, and then I'm going to score this at 5 1/2, and this is then going to be a top folding US A2 size card. So I just wanted something that wasn't white, but I didn't want to add another kind of matte and layer onto this, and I just thought on that grey cardstock this would look really beautiful. So because I've got then that twine around the back, I need to add a little bit of dimension onto our background. So of course I'm going to add some Big Mama foam tape, and I'm just going to add this down the back, but I'm not actually going to add it over where this twine is, because we don't need any more thickness in that area. Okay, so I've taken the back off my double-sided tape, and now we can just add this onto our card base. Just like so, and again it just adds something a little different just by being that sort of light grey colour. And then I'm going to add our sentiment on here, and again I'm just going to add some foam tape. So I'm going to get my card nice and straight. And then we have our sentiment added. So all we've got left to do now is just to add a few little finishing embellishments. So I've grabbed 2 Nouveau crystal drops here. So we have bright gold and ivory seashell. So I want to bring in just a little bit more of that gold colour, because obviously we've only got it just in the background of those butterflies. So I'm just going to add a couple of small drops in here. Let's add just a few ivory ones in here as well. Just to finish that off nicely. So for our card we've got lots of different sort of layers and bits of texture and things in here, and I really love how this has all come together. But being able to use then those pretty layering petals dies, not just to create flowers, not to use them as petals, but actually to use them in a different way. And here we've used them to create a butterfly, and I just think that looks so beautiful. We've got the twine, you've got the extra bit, we've got the splatter with then that vellum in the background, and then that really sort of striking sentiment. Again, then creating a different coloured card base, not just white and not just having that simple matte and layering, I just think has created a really beautiful card. So that is it for today's video. If you do like this card, then please give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment down below. If you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please do so you don't miss out on any future videos. And that's it for today. Thanks very much for watching, and happy crafting.